So delighted to welcome to the podcast here, European Tour winner Peter Lawrie and Malachy Clerkin of the Irish Times. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Listen, we brought you on to talk about Bryson DeChambeau. Peter, I want to get your thoughts first on, what are your thoughts on what he's done during lockdown, and how do you think he's going to fare going forward?
Funny enough, we've been talking about this for quite some time on the other podcast, and I was under the illusion that he put on this massive amount of weight, and I was amazed that he could put on this massive amount of weight and have this swing speed at the same. Until I found out recently that he actually had the speed all along, but never used it. And putting on the weight and then getting the speed as well, or having the speed, he's kind of made a decision to go long driving contest kind of way to play golf, rather than our normal, hit it down the fairway, hit it on the green. He's trying to pretty much drive it and kill every par four, kill every par five as best he can. So now I look at it and I think, well, he's taking a risk here big time. Not alone on his body, but also he's gone through the honeymoon period of being able to hit us the massive distances that he has without hitting the ball all over the place. But that will come, because nobody that I know is able to square up the club face at that speed consistently. But we know golf has changed dramatically. Not out of the top 100 in the world, they're all, I think there's only maybe one or two that are in any way close to being able to hit it straight. All the rest of them just boom it out there and wedge it on the green. So in reality, he has changed golf. He's changed the way people will look at golf. And he's changed the way kids will going to come out on tour. They're all going to go, right, this is the way forward. This is the new thing. Let's all try and hit us 350, 400 yards and play golf from there. So he certainly has changed the way people's mentality about golf is.
Yeah, Malachy, I suppose set the scene a bit for our listeners that weren't aware of Bryson prior to maybe lockdown, and obviously golf being one of the only sports on or first to come back, in terms of what made him different, and then your thoughts on his recent weight gain and what he's trying to do.
Yeah, like the thing with him is that, he has been coming for a few years. He had a fantastic amateur record. I think only Tiger and Phil won the NCAA and the US Amateur in the same year before Bryson did it. It's not like he has bolted from the blue. He's been on tour, I guess, it must be like four or five seasons at this stage. He's won 5 tournaments, or was that his 6th last week?
Six now, yeah.
That was his 6th, yeah. Played Ryder Cup. He is... he's an up-and-coming, really good golfer. It's not like he has just burst on the scene with this new game. He is a phenomenal golfer, one way or the other. That should be stated from the outset. He has always sort of done things his own way. All his clubs are the same length, which is weird in the history of golf, really. It's not, or certainly, everybody who's played golf for the last however many years, your irons get progressively shorter the higher the number goes, because it is the way golf clubs have been designed. He has made all his clubs the same length, and he's an idiosyncratic guy. He talks a lot about the science of the game. He portrays himself as this really I don't know if deep thinker is the right term, because everybody who plays professional sport thinks deeply about their game. So he's no deeper a thinker than the rest of them. But he is a more lateral thinker. I think that's absolutely fair to say. He finds his own little ways of doing things, and his finding edges in the game. But he last October, I think these are the dates. Last October, so the first week of October was the Shriners tournament. And when he finished it, he said, "Yeah, I'm going to take some time off now, and when I come back, you're going to be surprised at how big I am. I'm going away." Like, this is the thing, and to be fair to him, anything that I will say about him, or anything that I would say about the situation, you have to give Bryson all of this. He said from the start that he was going away to get bigger. And so that was October the 6th. He didn't play again in public until the President's Cup, which I think is second week of December. He essentially disappeared for 2 months and came back with an extra 1.5 stone of muscle on him. Then he didn't play again until the start of 2020. So, he took the Christmas break off that everybody takes off. Played at the start of the year up until lockdown came in, and then disappeared over lockdown like everybody else did, and came back with another 1.5 stone of muscle on him. To the point now where it is hilarious when you see him on screen, and he is this big dude, like this swollen guy. But the funny thing is, they haven't updated, like the TV companies haven't updated the picture that they have from the start of the tour season to go along with each player's profile. So you have this kid that looks maybe 5 years younger in his picture than the guy who is on the other side of the split screen, and actually he's only 9 months younger. So there's a little sort of before and after every time you look at the screen. He has become he has really gone huge. Like and this is the thing, you have to give it to him. He has done this by design. He went away to do this. He said, "I'm going away. I'm doing my workouts." And in the world of social media, he was on Instagram every day, putting up the work or at least clips of the work he was doing in the gym. So there is, on some level, a reasonable explanation for it all. If or at least he can say, "Hey, look, I told you I was going away to get big. I posted on Instagram every day all the work I was doing in the gym." And for somebody like me, absolutely, of course. Like, I don't doubt that he went to the gym every day. Of course he did. Look at the size of him. But the question that I was asking in the column that I wrote in the Irish Times a week ago was, why is nobody asking anything about this? In any other sport, if somebody disappears from view for the guts of 5 months out of 9, and look, through the lockdown, everybody disappeared from view. I'm not saying there's anything nefarious in the fact that he disappeared from view. I'm just saying that for 5 months out of the 9, he was the only bit of him that anybody got to see was whatever he put up on Instagram. In any other sport, if a guy came back that big, there would be questions asked. And especially when the size he has put on has directly led to the change in his golf game. Now, again, it really should be pointed out that when he won last week, his putting stats were off the charts. There was an improvement beyond, there's nothing in the world. That's just pure skill. That's, skill and practice and all of that. And it was his putting that won that tournament. But on the power side of the game, the side of the game that building your body will help, his stats have gone off the charts. It has completely reimagined almost the game, especially as Peter was saying, that he is looking for long drive club head speed and long drive ball speed. And it was just interesting to me that golf, which has a terrible history when it comes to dope testing, which has a very, it's a very pick and mix sport when it comes to that at no stage in the last 4 weeks has anybody even said, "Hey, Bryson, have you done a dope test since you came back?" Like, it's absolutely fine to ask. You know, it's there's, you know, nobody's saying anything. I'm certainly not saying anything nefarious went on, but I'd like to know a bit more. You know, like since these golfers are being tested for COVID before every tournament and every day they're competing and all that sort of stuff, has the PGA's dope testing, has it gone completely by the wayside? Does it exist at all? And if it does, or like in the 3 months when he was away, or in the 2 months back at the end of last year, was there any out of competition? Like, my knowledge of, or this was certainly the case a few years ago in the PGA Tour, out of competition testing was basically they tested you on a Monday or a Tuesday of a tournament week when you were on site. Like, nobody was going to anybody's home like they do with Olympic testers or anything like that. So I'd like to know a wee bit more about that. And it was just struck me that nobody seemed to be asking. Nobody was really seemed to be that interested in it, which, when you consider how you know, he's been the best golfer in the world since the restart. You know, he was the most consistent for the 4 weeks between him and Webb Simpson, but then he finally won, so that he was, over 4 weeks, he was the best player. So I'd just like to see more questions asked, really.
But Malachy, do you think this has happened with other golfers? Other golfers have come back from nowhere, back surgery, etc. And nothing, very few press would even dare to ask.
Yeah.
Especially when they've been associated with certain doctors that are out there with blood transfusions and all the rest. It seems to be I don't know whether you could call it a thing with some journalists now. They're nearly frightened to ask
100%, yeah, 100%,
ostracized.
Yeah. Well, I don't know even that it would be an ostracized situation, although I suspect you're correct. But like, Peter, geez, you know that world. It is such a small world. You know, it is so, you know, you're talking about, you know, for a global sport that we watch, and, you know, that like when a major is on, millions around the world watch it. It's a sport that, you know, the traveling band each week is about 500 people, give or take, you know, and at the minute it's even smaller than that, because, you know, you know, there's no equipment guys on site, there's no, you know, there's very little media on site, so it is a tiny world. No, you're 100% right. You know, players disappear and come back all the time, but I think on some level a player can disappear and come back and sort of melt back into civilian life in a way, you know, unobtrusively kind of build their game and find their way to getting back amongst it. Whereas Bryson, and, you know, this is possibly to his credit, you know, he wasn't just coming back to kind of slide in and hope nobody noticed. He says, I'm going away to get huge. I am back and I'm huge. And watch this drive. Look how far these drives are going. And his driving stats were just amazing. Like, there was a brilliant stat. Justin Ray, the great statistician on the PGA Tour, had a brilliant one at the end of, or it was even going into the final round last week, that for the week, and I don't know what it ended up as, but for the week, for the first 3 days of the tournament, the Rocket Mortgage Classic, Bryson had 10 drives over 350 yards, and the rest of the field, nobody had more than 5. Like, so he is just obliterating. So that's the only difference here, Peter, is that like there was no sense of him sort of trying to just slide back in and hope nobody noticed.
He was.
And so it is as if he was almost kind of daring people to ask him, you know, that he was also almost kind of going, here I am, guys. Anything you want to say to me, you know, say it now.
And Peter, do you think he's kind of maybe even looked at this in November and gone, right, some golfers changed their swing and changed the way they play for a specific tournament? Think of someone like Martin Keimer in the Masters and might have lost his way. Do you think he would have sat back and gone, right, if you look at the whole of the PGA Tour, what events am I going to dominate the most? And what's the way I'm going to do it? And Bryson DeChambeau might have gone, look, if I hit the ball 350 yards, the rough ain't big enough. It's not going to catch me out. I'm going to change my game entirely to suit this.
I think he made a definite decision to change the way he approached golf. And I think while other players would have had probably greater speed, they've tried to dial it down to hit it straighter. Tony Fennew, Gary Woodland, Patrick Cantley, they've all kind of toned it down a little bit to hit more fairways or keep it in play. I think Bryson has made the decision where he now thinks and has proven that he's going to overpower every golf course that he plays. And that has given him exceptional confidence in his putting and short game that, you know, he dialed it in last week, and it was his putter that won him the tournament rather than hitting it long. But when you're giving yourself so many chances from wedge distances, you know, your putting is going to improve. You're hitting it in closer, so therefore you're going to hold more putts. So yeah, I definitely think he has definitely made the decision to change the way he plays the game. It's no longer golf has changed dramatically from the Faldo-esque of fairway green, you know, monotonous. That's changed. It's now stand up there with the driver, take it over any hazard, any tree, any dog leg, get it as close to the green as possible, make birdie, walk on. If I miss it, I'll chip it out, start again, try and make par and move on. So yeah, I definitely think he's made the decision, and we're going to see guys now who have the same speed. I don't know whether you saw it there recently, Tony Fennew putting up 206 miles an hour ball speed recently, playing with a group of friends, and he's only one who's going to do it. And I tell you a story actually about Tony Fennew. Himself and his brother came over to Sweden. They were invited over. I think they were 15-year-olds. And I watched them on the range, and they played in the tournament, and they can hit it over the range at 15. And I mean 15. Over the range. And I went up to him, and I remember going up to the two of them, and they were just finished. And I said, no, lads, come on. I need to see this. I've heard too much about it, because it went through the whole, you know, golf course about these two young kids. And it was just incredible. And I mean incredible. It was jaw-dropping. And since then, I've been waiting for Tony Fennew to come onto the scene, because he had that raw talent. And so did his brother. And the way golf is, he made it, his brother didn't. But as I said to you, yeah, we're going to see all these guys now take it out and take driver out and smash it as far as they can.
One of the funny things, actually, I trawled through all of Bryson's press conferences, basically going back to October. They're all online. There's a resource called ASAP Sports where you can find press conference interviews going back for however many years. And I can't remember whether it was late last year or early this year when Bryson was asked at one stage, what's your big targets for the year? And, like, you know, it's a nothing press conference question that you throw out while you're trying to think of a good question, you know, to get the guy talking and let him bullshit away about, yeah, you know, I really want to make the Ryder Cup team, or I want to win a major. Bryson said 195. 195 is my big target for the year. I want to record a ball speed of 195 on the PGA Tour. And you're going, you mad joke. Like, that was his target for the year. That was what he said. And so, like, you know, even stuff like that is nearly in his favor with the stuff that I'm asking you, because this is the stuff that he has set out to do. You know, that his stated aim is to hit the ball 1,000,000 miles and take it from there. And you know, when he put, as Peter says, because I watched him the more or less all 4 weeks that he played, and like he came very close to winning a couple of those tournaments, only for his putting just let him down here and there, and he gave himself too much to do. I think the first week in Texas, where I think he ended up 1 short or 2 short or something like that, and that was purely that his wedges weren't great and his putting just wasn't quite up to it. But like when he gets his putting right, like he did at the Rocket Mortgage, you know, he's going to reduce these courses to pitch and putt courses. Some of them.
Yeah. Just on that, so yeah, the stat that he was the first player since 2004 to finish number 1 in putting and driving last week in the Rocket Mortgage. But what about that wider question, Peter, in terms of is it good for the game? Because I'm trying to think of fans that are kind of half an interest. I suppose it's a massive talking point. You're looking forward to watching Bryson DeChambeau every week, but you know, have we gone way too far now on the case in terms of course setups and stuff that the PGA Tour really need to look at this?
It's more the RNA and the USGA are going to have to really look at it. It's a stage now where everything has gone too far, and they've sat on their hands and haven't made a decision in relation to the ball and the club head. And as the years go on, the ball is going further and further. The misses are less and less, and they haven't done anything about it. And you know, one of the people that were shouting from the rooftops was Jack Nicklaus many years ago, and they still haven't done anything about it. And now they're going to we've got to a situation where it's ridiculous and it's actually probably destroying golf. But on the other hand, the lawsuits are lined up by the manufacturers if they do try and change things. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place where they're going to change. They have to change something. But if they do change something, they're going to get sued for tens of millions of billions of dollars from the likes of the main manufacturers. Mm. So what do? You know, how do you not destroy the game? I suppose you can't build golf courses for 8,000 yards long because it'll take too long to play, and then people will just switch off because we all know and we all love golf, but golf can be exceptionally boring sometimes. And from the viewer looking in, they don't want to see, you know, it taking now 5 hours to play or 6 hours to play rather than the supposedly 4.5 or 4 hours that it's meant to take, which it never does. It's always the 5 hour rounds, unless they're on TV and they have to get finished for a certain time. So really, I don't have a solution other than, you know, you stand there and you say, right, well, bring on the lawsuits and change the dynamic of the game. I don't know whether anybody saw recently, Titleist did it was probably before COVID, so because it was no social distancing and all the rest in the clip, but it was about the no dimples on the golf ball. Did anybody see this? No. So they got a couple of pros to hit a no dimple golf ball. Literally, you know, a golf ball made just with no dimples, and they couldn't hit it. The furthest anybody hit it was 176 yards. Wow. They couldn't get the ball in the air. They and these were pro golfers who did the test. So they were talking about how important a dimple is on a golf ball. So like if we look at the dimples and we take some off it, then we may be able to change the structure of the golf ball going forward. But it'll have to be a pro only golf ball or a tournament only golf ball that everybody has to play with a similar golf ball or similar equipment. That's the only way you're going to do it, because golf now has changed. Look at the top 100 in the world. They're all proper athletes. There's nobody there that is if we look back in history, a Craig Stadler, a Craig Parry, a Colin Montgomery even in his heyday. There's none of that. There's lean, mean athletes that are playing the game. And that's where golf is. It's an athletic sport now. Whether it used to be skill, skill is a lot of it taken out of it, or in manufacturing shots, that's all gone. So something has to be done, but how ballsy the RNA and the USGA are. Look, when we look at the long putter, they kind of threw that one to the side, didn't they? You know, their initial thing was your putter had to be the shortest club in the bag, and then they came out with some stupid thing. Oh, there's no anchoring, but you can have the putter as long as you like. So Bernard Langer, kept his career going by a millimeter off his chin or off his chest. And can we prove it's a millimeter off his chest? And no disrespect to Bernard or other golfers that are out there using something similar up their arm, and okay, it's not holding on to their arm against the club, but it's certainly against their arm. So is it anchoring or is it not anchoring? So, I often find that guys who head up and committees who head up these things are often scared to make any decision, because by making a decision, they have to live and die by the sword. And unfortunately, they just don't have the balls to do it. If it was me, I'd definitely, go hell for leather and change things around. But unfortunately, we don't have that.
Yeah, and probably for the average golf fan, Malachy, like I haven't watched too much golf in the last while. I watched the first week and then I watched there at the Heritage, and I find it a bit kind of boring almost. It's the same low scores, like 18, 19, 20 unders winning every week. Like especially for a journalist and also a golf fan, is that something that you'd enjoy watching if it's the same repeated stuff over and over?
Sir, no, obviously if it's the same every week, if 20 under is winning every week, you kind of, at a certain point you kind of go, come on lads. But I mean, I'm not surprised. I think they definitely made a determination that they were the first real TV sport that was back after the lockdown, and I think they presumed that, look, there's going to be fresh eyes here, there's going to be kind of casual floating sports fans watching. Wouldn't be great if 3 under wins the first week and we push it out to 6 under the next week, kind of thing. So it'd be interesting now. This coming week, they're going back to Muirfield again, so they're playing back-to-back tournaments on the same course. The talk is, so last week was the Workday Charity Open. Next week, or this coming week, is the Memorial. There's talk that they're going to really cut the greens a lot tighter, and so make scoring more difficult. It'll be interesting to see if it turns out that way, because you're right. Every week has been the same, and okay, the weekend just gone was the first one actually where 3 guys kind of separated themselves at the top of the leaderboard. The weeks previous to that, you were finding yourself going into Sunday with 24 guys within 3 shots of the lead, which was extraordinary, and it was each week. So they can gerrymander the course to whatever level they want. It will be fascinating to see how it goes this week. There was a lot of, it's funny watching some of it yesterday, with holes like the 14th, which is a 308 par 4. Guys were, taking driver and trying to drive the green quite a bit. I was thinking of Bryson. Bryson with his 350 driver will have to take a little off it to try and keep it on the green. So it's that kind of golf. It's fine every once in a while, and I wouldn't hold it against them for doing it the first 4 weeks back. But if it's the same, if it's 20 under every week, it kind of gets a little dull, all right.
One thing, Peter, just before we move on to Brooks's tweet, we just wanted to find out a little bit more about your own experience of testing. I know we touched on it before there. So on the European tour, when you were playing, was it once a year type thing? How does it work basically for people that obviously would never have had that experience?
You'd be met off the 18th green on the very odd occasion and walked to the scorer's hut by one of the testers. They'd wait outside until you signed your card, and then you had to go and pee into a bottle for your test. It was amazing the amount of players who were coming off the golf course having been probably dehydrated and had to wait umpteen. I suppose one guy had to wait about 2 hours before he was able to. But yeah, you had to sit in the room and wait to pee into this bottle. But it happened on the rare occasion, really. I think I was tested maybe my last couple of years, probably once, twice. Previous to that, you might be tested maybe, twice, 3 times a year. There was no blood taken. There was never any blood tests done. There was never any off-site tests done. And you got the results maybe a couple of weeks later if there was any problems. I remember getting a phone call last day. I was over in China and I had a bit of a head cold, and I took paracetamol with whatever in it. And I got a phone call at 9:30 on a Friday evening from one of the doctors saying, there's a problem. And I said, well, there is a problem. You're phoning me at 9:30 on a Friday night. You got that one right. So I was asked, did I take anything? I said, I told you at the time what I took. Oh, well, one of your samples has shown up with something, barely minuscule. And I said, well, it's probably, something I took from the either codeine or paracetamol or whatever it was for a head cold. And she said, oh, just in future, you know what I mean? Make sure that you let us know or you check beforehand. And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And I said, you do realize it's 9:30 on a Friday night? And she said, yeah. And this was, I wasn't even playing the tournament. You know what I mean? I was at home. This was totally off scale. And she said, oh, yeah, we're just going through a few things. And I said, okay, fair enough. And that was the end of it. I never heard any more. So I can't remember one person that and I was on the tournament committee at the time, that came to the table that was in any way breaking the rules.
Listen, lads, I'm going to have to run off here because Peter Lawrie is just after admitting to a doping offence. So I'm going to have to write this up for tomorrow's paper.
No,
Listen, this is going to blow the Jack Tarleton stuff out of the water.
We want the exclusive on that, Malachy. Come on. Just maybe a little bit following on from that, Malachy, on what Peter said in terms of maybe golf's lax approach to drug testing, in terms of the small amount of players that have tested positive, and then maybe move on to a little bit of a Brooks's tweet with the Kenny Powers gift as well.
Yeah, but look, every sport, every sport, you can tell how interested it is in finding a doping problem by the amount of testing it does. Look, and even testing itself, sure, we know Lance Armstrong never failed to test. It's no proof really of anything, the amount it does. But if golf was in any way serious about it, if it thought on any level or wanted to admit on any level that there was the possibility of a problem, it would do way more testing. It would do it way more transparently. It would make a much bigger deal of it. It wouldn't hide the suspensions. Like, for God's sake, if somebody gets a doping suspension, you only find out about it after the fact, it would make a much bigger thing out of it, and it makes nothing out of it. As far as golf is concerned, it doesn't exist really. And that's their choice. That's up to them. But the way these things change is, like, we all had a good laugh at Brooks Koepka's tweet about tweeting a gif of the guy from Eastbound and Down reacting with roid rage to steroid obligations. And we all had a good laugh at that. And, clearly he's an Irish Times reader, so that's good as well. But that's how things come to the surface a bit, If the sport itself has no interest in it, then the only thing that can make things happen at all is if the people who are being cheated make a big thing of it. That's the only way sport gets rid of a doping problem, if there is one there. And again, I'm not saying that there is one in golf at all, but people in a sport know what the story is. If you are out there competing for a first prize of $1.4 million week to week, or bigger than that in the majors, and the guy who beats you, you have your suspicions about, well, then you have a choice. You have a choice to either kick up a fuss about it or just shrug your shoulders and say that's the way life is.
But Brooks, sorry for interrupting you, Malachy, but Brooks didn't do any of that, though. He kind of hid behind something. If you're going to have the balls to come out and say it straight up, you know what I mean? I think Bryson cheated, full stop, rather than putting up a silly gift to say, oh, well, this has possibly happened. To be honest with you, if I was Bryson, I'd go over there and knock him out completely. Because he's questioning his character, he's questioning his name, without being able to stand to this, to the point of, I'm going to say this and I'm going to stand by it. One thing about, and I've always admired one thing about Paul Kimmage was, when he did make a thing about Lance Armstrong, he stuck by it. He didn't back down. No matter what happened, he stood with it. And that's the one thing. Like, if Bryson is, or if Brooks is going to come out with something, come out with it. Don't sit in the sidelines. You know what I mean? Be a man. Stand up for yourself.
I'm with you 100%, Peter. I mean, I guess there's only so much you can do in the absence of evidence and all that sort of stuff. But I'm with you 100%. And plus, he'd be able to afford the lawyer's fees much more than I can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how Bryson gets on in the next few weeks. He actually hasn't had that good a major record, and we're coming into a World Golf Championship and a PGA. I think he's missed 5 missed cuts in 11 major starts. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. What do you expect to see over the next couple of weeks, Peter?
Well, I just can't wait to see that 195 ball speed in a strong left to right howling wind in an Open Championship.
Yeah,
he might end up in a local lighthouse rather than a golf course. So let's see what happens.
This is the other thing. You're exactly right. We're talking about the end of golf as we know it. But we're talking about a guy whose best finish in a major is 15th. Let's see him do it before we declare the end of golf.
And I know Bryson actually spoke that the main reason behind this is the majors. He wants to win majors. So I suppose these next 3 majors coming up are the test of that.
Yeah, and look, these next 3 majors are going to be weird in a way. Anyway, they're out of the season that they would usually be in. They'll be under different conditions to what they'll usually be in. We don't know how big the field, like how full the fields will be, all that sort of stuff. So they'll be interesting in those respects anyway. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And then, so this week on the Memorial, we have the return of Tiger Woods. Now, this will be coming out on Wednesday, and we haven't had the groups yet. But if they're not putting Bryson, Brooks, and Tiger in one of the featured groups, then what are we doing here? To be honest with you, but are you excited at the return of Tiger? I know he was in good form in that match, and I've seen a few videos of his swing. I know it's obviously always going to look good, but I suppose golf's excited to have Tiger back anyway, Peter.
And look, Tiger Woods has made everybody a fortune. Simple as, whether it's journalists, whether it's other players, caddies, manufacturers, you name it, the Tiger Woods name and his stats. I don't know whether you saw that one with Colin Morikawa. He had won 43 times since missing his second cut, which is just an incredible stat of how ready he was to play golf when he teed it up. And look, he only tees it up 20 times a year, if even that, maybe 22 the odd time. But, it's great to see him back. I would have loved to see him play a little bit more. You wonder what is he up to, sitting on the sidelines. Is golf that important to him anymore? I suppose he's getting ready for another kind of major launch, or try to launch himself at the majors. To see can he get even close to Jack Nicklaus. But look, we're all excited to see him back. He hasn't got the firepower that Bryson has. He hasn't got the firepower that Rory or DJ have anymore. But he still knows how to get the ball in the hole. So look, we'll wait and see. I wouldn't be expecting too much from him in the first week or so. But it's just nice to see him back in the field, and he has certainly boosted the ratings.
Yeah, Malachy, your thoughts on Tiger coming back?
Yeah, like everybody else, I've spent 23, 24 years being amazed at Tiger Woods. So I shouldn't be amazed if he's any good this week, but I will be. He has he just hasn't been on the scene, and outside of the majors last year, even outside the Masters, I don't know, he looked very tired towards the end of the year. He just looked a little uninterested in the non-major tournaments. So it's sure, look, I won't miss a shot when he's back. I'll sit glued to it. But like Harding Park is what he's aiming at. That's what 4 weeks away now, 3-4 weeks. The first major of the year in San Francisco. That's what he's back for. I'd be surprised now if he makes a run at anything before that. But as I say, I spent 24 years being constantly amazed by him, so I should get over that by this stage, really.
And just to put on our Irish glasses there for a second, obviously we've only seen a little bit of Rory, seen a bit more of Shane the last 2 weeks. 2 missed cuts to start the restart, and then a tied 60th and a tied 39th. And the only thing letting him down has been 274s on Saturdays that he's made the cut. Peter, talk to me about Rory and Shane. How do you think they're going to get on in the next weeks and months?
I think Shane is struggling to find a bit of consistency, which surprises me, based on himself and probably America, but he's probably a bit homesick, to be honest with you. Shane is very much a home bird and seems to play better the more he is at home, where he's more relaxed and is not so, psychologically worn out by golf. I think the Ryder Cup being cancelled might do him a bit of a favour. I think he had an awful lot of pressure on himself and being put on him to make the team, especially with Porik as captain. I think now that nothing counts till January, I think the blinkers are off a little bit, and I think he can play with a much freer style, the way he normally plays, and he probably won't be thinking about the finish line as much. He'll just go out and play. Rory, on the other hand, has played kind of inconsistently since kind of starting out. I don't know what it is with Rory. He seems to And it's very surprising. He lacks that kind of killer instinct when he does get a chance to win. And whether that's mental or it has to be mental, it can't be physical. So that's my only concern with Rory. I think Rory is probably, to me, he's the best swinger, the best player of the game that I know. But I you know, as kind of my new role as a little bit of broadcasting, which I do with Golf Weekly, I've been highly critical of him, and I suppose I've got a bit of stick from that. But I stand by it. I don't care how many times he finishes second. I don't care how many times he finishes in the top 10. And he seems to reverse himself into a top 10 very easily. He hasn't won. And when somebody of his stature gets on a plane on a Sunday night, you want it to be with the trophy. And, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth doesn't really make a difference. Money to him now is second nature. He's making zillions out there as we speak, on and off the golf course. So that can't be a deciding factor. It has to be, as Tiger would say, you know, wins. It has to be based around that. And that's what you're going to be seen as. You're not going to be seen as the guy who finishes fourth and third and leads the, you know, the stroke average or the money list or whatever. It's the guy who wins the most. And that's what you relate to yourself. And Rory doesn't do that. But he has the ability to do it. He has the ability to dominate golf, and has had the ability to dominate golf over the last couple of years, and hasn't done it. And why he hasn't done it, it has to be mental. So that's my synopsis of Rory and Shane.
Final point on that, Malachy. I know you've spoken previously on Rory and sometimes his choking in certain situations. What's your take on him going forward in terms of what Peter just said there about winning?
Yeah, I agree with every word of it. You know, I mean, when I said he choked, it was specifically about the first day of Portrush last year, which, you know, it was nothing but a mental failure. And you know, I think the word choking gets a terrible rap in golf. Nobody will admit to it. It is the one taboo in golf. But all choking is a mental failure. And that was what Portrush was last year. You know, he's hit the opening shot on the first tee in Portrush hundreds of times in his life. And he somehow puts it out of bounds. That's purely the weight of the occasion getting on him. And I, you know, there's an old bugbear of mine. I don't think people should be ashamed to say I had a mental failure. Like, they come in off the course and say, yeah, I couldn't putt today, or yeah, my wedges were off. Why can't you just come in and say, yeah, my mental game was bad, i.e. I choked? Anyway, that's for another day. But Peter's 100% right. You know, like, we've all sat and watched McIlroy go shoot the easiest 31 on a front nine that you've ever seen. You know, not one drive out of place. Every drive 340 yards middle of the fairway. Every wedge to 8 feet. Every putt go in. And then you're watching it and you're going, this game is comically easy for this lad. You know, it is just totally the thing that he was put on earth to do. And then you find yourself there on a Sunday. Which was it? Was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that he went? One of those guys who was within, one of the 24 who was within 3 shots. I think he was actually 1 off the lead going in on the Sunday. And I actually, whatever I was doing that Sunday, didn't get around to tuning in until maybe an hour into the coverage. And I went, where is Rory? And he was 5 over for the first 8 holes. Yeah. And you go, what are you doing? You know, like, you have been just unimpeachable the rest of the week. And on the front 9 on Sunday, when the tournament is there, just disappears from view. And I didn't even get a chance to kind of look back and see what happened. Did he get a couple of bad breaks, or what was it? But it was more that and this is the really damning thing about him, was that when I checked and went, geez, he's 5 over for the first 7 holes. My second thought was, of course he is. So that's what he does now. And it was funny. God love it, before the lockdown, in the Times, I did a Monday morning podcast, a sports roundup podcast that will come back at some stage when life gets back to some sort of normality. But anyway, we have a producer who works on it, and she's into a few sports, but she's really not into golf, And I remember we came in one Monday morning after he had come second or third in whatever tournament he had been playing. It may have been after a Masters or whatever it was. And she says, God, I don't really watch golf at all, but I listen to the sports news, to get ready for this. Is Rory McIlroy the worst golfer Ireland has ever produced? Now, she knew what she was asking. She knew that but she says, God, every time I turn on the radio, he's after losing another tournament. And you're going, like, it is obviously he's the best golfer Ireland have ever produced, but you're going, like, he should win more. Like, he should, for how good he is at the game, relative to the game, but also relative to the people he competes against. He just doesn't do it enough, And as Peter said, it has to be a mental thing. How when in a tournament where the winning score is going to be 20 under par and he has matched that winning score all the way to Sunday, how you can be 5 over after 7 holes? That's pure. That's a loss of mental agility. And every time he talks about it, every interview he does, every 80,000 word epic he does with Paul Kimmage, that's the subtext to all of it. The subtext to it is the mental game and his workarounds for it and all the reading he's doing for it and all the mindfulness and all the books and all that sort of stuff. And yet, his last major is 6 years ago now. For a guy that is that good, God, he's so frustrating. Like, it really is frustrating to watch him, but it's great to watch him. At the same time, it's completely fascinating to see. But Jesus, he should win more.
And for someone that's actually played well during that times, during a weeks and not won a major, is when he's at his best, he's still in the top tier, and hopefully we get to see some of his best in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah. Well, listen, Malachy, Peter, you've been great. Thanks a million for joining the podcast.
No worries, lads.
Thanks.
Cheers.